I'm delighted to be here, primarily because I'm so excited about DiverseCity. I'm excited about the energy that has been created. I think the focus that so many organizations are now bringing to thinking about diversity in their organization, to thinking about what it means in terms of the health and well-being of our community at large and our city and the vibrancy of our city, sense of inclusion, a sense that decisions will be made by a variety of people who come from a rich background with rich experiences, and altogether the answer that we come up with has got to be better than if it's only some of us that are putting our minds to it. So in so many ways this is just a leading edge initiative, and I'm thrilled to be associated with it through the Toronto City Summit Alliance and truly appreciate Maitre's incredible leadership on this. I was asked to speak a little bit about the organization that I work with on a day-to-day basis, that I know and love, the United Way of Toronto, and just to talk a little bit about the journey that we've gone on in terms of diversity and our focus on that in our organization. And I've only been at the organization since 2001, and I know that this has been an issue that has been very important and central to a lot of my leadership decisions as the CEO of the organization. But I didn't know really a lot about what had happened before I got there, so I went back and took a look. And I saw that in the 1980s we did a little bit of work with our partner agencies out in the community, talking about anti-discrimination policies and thinking a little bit about what that might mean to work with agencies in a different way. But it wasn't until 1991 that United Way actually passed its own policy internally for anti-discrimination in its own workplace practices. And it actually came about as a result of the City of Toronto's procurement practices and the fact that to do work with the City of Toronto, you had to actually have that as one of your policies. Now, United Way didn't have to do work in that sense, contracted work, but felt that it was the right thing to do and moved ahead and wrote it into its contract. It's interesting, in 1991, I was in the Ontario legislature, and at that point in time, in 1990, the very first time I stood up in the Ontario legislature was to announce a new government policy of anti-harassment and extension of same-sex benefits. Governments were actually leading in those days. The public sector was leading, and most of us in the not-for-profit sector and in the private sector were doing some things, but it really was about saying the bare minimum, not because we were hesitant or resistant, but we thought that simply having non-discrimination policies would be enough. Well, in 2001, when I came to United Way, we actually began a journey that's threefold. One was looking at our workplace and looking at our policies and the practices that were in place. So we moved from having a simple workplace non-discrimination statement there are folks that are stuck out there. Come on in and move up a little bit for people so they can get in. Thank you. We moved from that and what we had in working with our partner agencies, which was multicultural anti-racism organizational development policy, MAROD. Those lasted for a decade. Well, in 2001, we began looking at updating a number of things. So the anti-discrimination statement actually became a workplace, a full policy around discrimination, a full policy around workplace harassment, mechanisms to support people who had experiences, who had complaints, peer counselors, a whole range of those really important support mechanisms, and training for people as they came into the organization, refresher training for others in the organization, and training of managers on how to respond and support individuals who had concerns and how to address specific issues as well as looking at systemic issues in the organization. We moved on at our board to develop a policy statement with respect to the diversity, our goals around diversity. So moving from simply anti-discrimination and anti-racism, which were critical factors, but to bring on board a sense of diversity and inclusion and looking to reach out not just to not discriminate. That also was driving, internally our work in terms of hiring and recruitment and looking out. But when I looked at some of the structures around the organization when I got there, I thought, boy, for a vital community organization, we've got a long way to go, and all of us talked about it and agreed that that was the case. The board at that point in time, we had some things to learn about governance too. There were 44 members of the board of trustees of United Way back in 2001. And only 25% were reflective of the diversity of our city. One of the things that people said to me is we did our governance review and we set ourselves a goal of reducing the number of members of the Board of Trustees to reflect good, better governance, and the ability for people to really work and have a voice at the table. One of the concerns people had was that, we would lose the diversity, the sense of diversity that we had. I thought, well, we're not doing so good at only 25%. I don't think that, that's going to be the biggest problem that we have. I think the change management is the issue. And of course, for 5 years, we were involved in downsizing our board. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to grow, although there was some turnover within that. And we were able, through good recruiting, moving out and recruiting through our agencies, who are absolutely reflective of the diversity of this city, recruiting individuals who had served on their boards, bringing them into our structure, we were able to make a real change. Well, today, in 2009, our board is sitting at 23. It has been for a couple of years. We're about to take another step down in terms of numbers this next year. We've been doing it gradually. But our visible minority representation is at 48%. If we track that, we also track a category we call ethnocultural as well as ethno-racial. When we combine the two together, it's at 61%. So a board that's gone from 44 down to 22, and diverse representation that's gone from 25% up to over 50%. There are so many talented people. When you open your eyes, when you reach out, when you change your networks of who you reach out to, that you can find who have just brought a world of very strong experience and great governance practices to our organization. The other place that I took a look at was the senior executive team, which of course I lead, and I'm not the example of diversity. I'm the old city, as we look around. I can't even say it's a great thing having broke through the glass ceiling being a woman, because in our sector, 80% of the employees are women. In fact, one of the things about diversity that I have a challenge with in terms of my senior executive team is I've had to really work hard to recruit men. To be as an old feminist, I never thought I'd have to focus on that, but as a good executive, I have. But when I started our executive team, there were 7 of us, and all of us were white around that table. Today, our organization has grown a lot in the last 9 years, but today there are 10 of us at the senior executive table, and we are 50% visible minority. We reflect the city that we serve, and we're proud of that. And it's not a hard, fast number. It will change over time, and I suspect it will probably grow over time. I'm also very proud that one of our senior executives actually came to us through the TRIAC initiative, again, of Toronto City Summit Alliance and Maitrey, and was a TRIAC intern who had been placed at TD, and then came to us and was in a senior executive position. And he had been in our country for about a year at that point in time. So we're thrilled again with the opportunity to reach into a new community and to have someone who's got great skills from international experience to bring them into our organization. I think that what I would say to people is that certainly there are challenges when you're dealing with workforces or volunteer bodies, governance bodies, if there's not a lot of turnover. And during the years that we were downsizing our board, it wasn't the easiest thing to have quick change in terms of the numbers. But we were able to make slow, steady change each year by looking forward in terms of our recruitment and working hard to build a list of potential individuals who are interested. We've taken that a step further now because along with our other governance renewal initiatives, we wanted to ensure that people who were coming onto our board had longer-term experience with our organization. So we actually recruit onto our board from our committee structure, our board committee structure now. And so it was very important for us to work even harder at committee recruitment to ensure that there was a pool of candidates there on our committees that could be brought forward. I think that the last thing I would say is that this journey is never over. We have just at the end of last year and launched in March of this year begun what we are calling our diversity and inclusion journey at United Way. We have a team of staff from across the organization They are about to launch a new survey of employees. It's not just to track numbers, we've done that for years. It's now to track people's experiences, to understand, have they experienced bias, have they experienced discrimination in their lives in the community, in their workplace at United Way, to learn what we can from people about what those experiences are like, how they feel they could contribute more, how do we open up our structures, and how do we hear each other. I think it's not just the numbers and the visible representation. It is about changing culture of organizations, that you're open to embrace ideas, you're willing to listen to people's experience, which is different, and that you take into account that diversity is cultural, it is racial, it is geographic, and it is cognitive, and we are all stronger if we can tap into the best of everybody that is in our organization.